Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of League Chat with the Stat. Thank you so much for joining me on another great week this week, covering all things of 2021 season reviews for every club. Now, I appreciate your support last week, guys, as I uncovered everything on the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs and just how poor they were this year. Moving on to another poor side that finished in 15th place this year was the North Queensland Cowboys. So we're going to discuss everything in terms of the season 2021 stats, where they were strong, where they were weak, any opportunities that presented themselves for the Cowboys. We're going to get into how every single player went that donned the Cowboys jersey this year, and just some bit of expectations for 2022. Thank you so much for joining me again on another week. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook and Instagram and follow. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all the latest drops of the season reviews and all the latest episodes that come through. Guys, talking everything North Queensland Cowboys this week, and another disappointing year for the Cowboys. I feel like they've really dropped every year since Jonathan Thurston has left the club. I don't know whether they really relied their whole entirety on Jonathan Thurston, but it just seems to be the case. They didn't have a great year this year, the Cowboys. They somehow managed to do worse last year. Now, if you guys remember last year, Paul Green stepped down as coach and decided to leave, parted ways with the Cowboys after a bit of a form slump, and Josh Hanna had to come in and step in. But this is not the new era for Todd Payten. Coming from the Warriors last year, where he was pretty inspirational in how he led the side, and with all the circumstances surrounding that, now he's coming to the Cowboys this year, looking for a fresh start to build the club, to bring it back to its pretty much his glory days, pretty much to the days where they were respected and they were much appreciated and they were relevant to the comp. But over the last couple of years, they've seemed to have dropped that. Now, Todd Payten came in this year, better expectation on him to kind of do well and lift the Cowboys side. But they were expected to go not that great this year, but they weren't expected to go much worse. When you consider the fact that the recruitment didn't really scream anything consistent. They didn't scream big names. They didn't scream marquee talent. The only relevance that they signed that was of first-grade experience was Lachlan Burr from the Warriors, where he played pretty well last year and played very similar this year, which we'll get into a bit later. But he was the only player that was signed that had any first-grade experience. So you can't expect a lot to change when you haven't recruited well enough for the season ahead. If you've gone poor the previous year, where you finished 14th, you can't come into this year with the exact same side expecting the same results. Things have to change. Recruitment needed to change. Unfortunately, they didn't recruit that well. Now, there was a lot of inconsistencies this year with Todd Payten in his side. A lot of inconsistencies. You know, if you take a look just at how they started the year, they didn't win a game for the first 4 or 5 weeks. They copped hammerings. The Panthers put them to the sword 24-0 in the first game. They got munched by the Titans round 3. Then they got smashed by the Sharks in round 4. The first win came against the Tigers. They went on a 3-game winning streak before dropping to the Warriors by 4 points. They won a game, then they lost a game. Then they won a game, then they won again. And then ever since that bye in round 13, things just went sour. Things started to go very bad. But I want to talk about the patch where they actually started to play some good football. It was against the Tigers. They were up 34-4, 34-0 at halftime in the round where the Tigers were paying tribute to Tommy Raudonikis. But the Cowboys put on a clinic in the first half that was really unexpected. The Tigers came back and they tried to fight on towards the end like they usually do, but obviously they had nothing on the Cowboys in that game. And that's what started to build for the Cowboys. They just needed a win, and that was what started it for them. So they go up 34-30 in round 5. Then they put on a 3-game winning streak. So they start to show some of their best football. Warriors pip them not long after that. Then they get a win over the Bronx, like I mentioned. They go a bit lost for a little bit before they hit the round 13 bye. Then it started to really go downhill from there. They conceded 50 to Manly. Then they lost by 2 to Sharks. And then it just got worse. Lost by 38-0 to the Knights. Then they lost to the Rabbitohs. Then to the Roosters. They played a semi-decent game in round 19 against the Storm. But they end up going on a 10-game losing streak. So the first 4 rounds, very poor. Win 3 on a trot. Then they have a loss, win, win, where they kind of pick up 2 in a row before the bye. Then they drop 10 straight. Very poor. Their win came in, their next win and last win came around 24, 38 points to 26 against the Dragons before then getting smashed by the Seagulls in the last round, which was very disappointing for the Cowboys. They got Tom Dearden to come into the side mid-year to kind of shake things up. He didn't win a game till around 24. You know, some of the players didn't play to the best of their abilities. They were missing Jason Taumololo for a bit of that period as well with different injuries. Then Valentine Holmes went down for 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. Then they released Jake Clifford to the Knights. So there were a lot of factors that came in into that as well. We've got to remember that Michael Maguire also had to... Michael Morgan had to announce his retirement from footy because of that shoulder injury that he was carrying, where he wasn't fit enough to play. So losing him early on really killed the Cowboys. So they were tossing up between so many people in the halves and who's the right fit. Early on, they had Drinkwater at fullback, who they ended up moving to 5'8". Then they had Holmes at fullback. Then they had Hamilton, Tabuai-Fidow at fullback. And then it was just a matter of trying to get the halves right before they settled on Drinkwater and Dearden. So that didn't obviously help their season at all. Another thing that I think really affected them was the Jason Taumololo conundrum. See, this is my opinion, where if you're Todd Payton, or if I was Todd Payton in this instance, what I would do is I would do my best in the limited time I have to utilize my abilities with that side. So I know that I'm not going to hang around for the next 10 to 15 years as coach. The likeliness of that happening isn't that strong. So I want to use every player I can to the best of their abilities. Jason Taumololo is on a very big coin there. And every year he proves to be one of the best forwards in the game with some very big numbers in attack and defense. But this year he got tossed around a lot, which I'll get into a little bit later. But he's the key man for the Cowboys. Anytime he's on the field, he leads. Anytime he's off the field, they look clueless. So with him not being settled in a position this year, moving from prop to second row to lock to the bench, and then keep rotating that sense, there was no consistency in that side and no leadership in that side. No one else stepped up and put their hand up and said, all right, let's lead from the front. They really missed Gavin Cooper. They missed that leadership experience in Gavin Cooper there. But look, we're going to get into what they tried to do right this year, I guess. There isn't much right if you've come 15th. The only thing they really did was they made the most intercepts, which really didn't lead to much. Doesn't really affect statistics in any way possible. They blooded in 6 debutants, so they got 6 players to come in and make their debuts for the club. And now you got to understand as well, this side is a relatively young side. And Hamilton Tabuai-Fidow, I thought at fullback was absolutely fantastic. I thought his influence going into the Queensland side and getting an Origin jumper as well was huge. Having him extend his contract as well for another further season till the end of 2023 as well just helped that cause as well. Those were the little strengths, the little things that you take out. You know, the weaknesses, they missed so many tackles through the middle. Their defense was so lackluster. They made it so easy for teams week in and week out to just go in and break through the middle of the field. And when they got to a lead against the Tigers, for example, who aren't the best attacking team or the best any team in any sense, they got to come back and put 30 on them, which just showed the quality of the side they have. While it is a relatively young squad, it's still very poor and it must be noted that defense wins games, and they had no defense all year. And like I mentioned, the lack of leadership on the field. So Michael Morgan having retired really hurt the club in that aspect. And especially in the half department, because he was their key half to lead them to a big 2021. With him gone, it caused a headache. It caused a lot of dramas. I felt like Colin Hess didn't have as much of a big year that was expected of him. Kind of settled a lot since he burst into the scene a few years back and hasn't really been as relevant since a lot of these leaders have left. And now it's time for him to step up, and he really didn't grab that with 2 hands. Then he ended up winning Player of the Year, so I'm not too sure how that kind of works, but they just didn't do enough. Jordan Mclean played every game this year, tried to do his best, but it wasn't enough. He needs that experience around him. He needs some support around him to continue to lift every week for that side. And like I said, with not knowing what to do with Jason Taumololo, it was just a massive distraction on field and off the field. Every week off the field, Payton was getting questions. You got to remember as well, they did release Josh Maguire towards the beginning of the year as well. He had a fallout with Todd Payton, and so they decided to kind of part ways, and he let him leave to the Dragons. But yeah, just his stance, Todd Payton's stance on Jason Taumololo was just one that highlights just how poor the Cowboys were this year. Now, in terms of any opportunities, like I said, they got to blood a lot of debutants. Halem Lukey, who won the Player of the Year for the Cowboys, I thought was extremely solid, as well as Jeremiah Nano. And Griffin Nemi, I thought he wasn't too bad as well, which will only be better for the long run. Now, with that being said, it opens up opportunities for a lot of these boys to get some experience and try to obviously get a start or get a jumper anywhere in that 17. with a lot of debutants going through this year. I thought Reuben Kotter played a solid first year for the Cowboys in his first year out in, week out in regular first grade, which I think he'll be better for. And I thought Tom didn't. He wasn't. It's a bit of a hard one. I didn't think he was amazing. I didn't think he was too terrible. I thought he played okay when he had the chances, and I thought he made the most of his opportunities when he took them at times. He only won one game of the 13-14 that he played there, but which we'll get into that later. In terms of any threats in the side, I thought Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. I just thought the way he breaks the line, the way he does his individual efforts was just outstanding. Loved the way he just got involved. And there were some games that he'd put on his back to win. He'd score that try against the Warriors. He'd go for the long-range try against the Dragons towards the end of the year. He scores that try in the beginning of the year against the Tigers where he goes the whole across the field, puts in that kick, gets in front of Dan Laurie. So he's only getting better. He's only 19. He's so much to learn from him. Having him at centers was another questionable call from Todd Payton as to why he would have been starting in the centers. I would have put him straight at fullback or on the wing at best. But I feel like with the way he's played at the times and limited opportunities he had at fullback, I think should be the stand-in fullback for the next however long, and keep Valentine Holmes on the wing. He's a lot better winger than he is a fullback, like we've always discussed. But those are the biggest threats for the Cowboys, and hopefully they can build this young squad into a bigger 2022. Now, it's time for all the play reviews, and we're going to start off with the backs. Now, we go into what I've done is I've gone like I did for the Bulldogs last week. I've gone into every single player's stats, just compared them to the year before, had they not made their debut this year, and just to see how they kind of went this year compared to last year. So we're going to start off with Ben Hampton. Had another injury-affected season. Tore his pec, wasn't meant to come back, but did make his appearance towards the back end of the year. Now, of those 10 games, he played 5 at halfback. So when you look at the career of Ben Hampton, he's been used a lot as a utility. Now, he didn't play the first 3 games. So he played from rounds 4 to 8, and then he got injured and then came back for rounds 20 to 24. Now, like I said, the first 5 games he played were at halfback. He then filled in a role on the bench and then played in the centers and then 1 game on the wing, just covering that utility base there. And in these 10 games, he scored 2 tries, had 3 try assists, an offload, and maintained an 87% tackle efficiency. He had a better year in 2020 with an additional 3 games played. So when you compare the stats from where he was last year, he had played 3 more games, had double the tries he scored. He kept the same with the offload. He made a lot less tackles last year, as making more this year. And he was just like I said, he averaged 83 running meters per game. And he did miss a few more tackles this year. I just didn't think he was that good this year and very impactful. I thought when at times he looked at fullback, at halfback, he looked okay. But without that consistency and tearing that pec, didn't really help him out this year as well. So I didn't really rate him this year. I thought it was a pretty poor year from Ben Hampton. Connelly Lumelu, now it's his second year in first grade, and it was good to see him get a bit more game time in that sense. Now, he played centers for the majority, for pretty much the entirety of the year, and before he got hooked the last few games due to injury. But in his second year playing consistent first grade, he scored 1 try, had 2 try assists, made 12 tackle breaks and a line break, and he missed 25 tackles this year at a tackle efficiency of 90.2%, and he averaged 105 meters per game. Look, they re-signed him to the end of 2022. I thought it was a pretty solid year from Connelly Lumelu. I thought, obviously, a second year under the belt will obviously help him out for the long run and make him a better player for it, and hopefully he can build into 2022 with a bit more consistency in his performances. But it's a pretty decent season for him to kind of look back and say, I can improve on this. So I thought it was good this year, and I thought it was good enough to be there. Dejan Asi. Not sure if you guys remember him, but he kind of burst onto the scene last year, and he's known to be a bit of a 5'8", but he's pretty much utility, can pretty much play anywhere. Made 5 appearances this year, had a try assist, 4 tackle breaks and a line break, and he made 80 tackles this year at a 87.9% tackle efficiency. Now, when you compare the numbers to last year, he also played 5 games. While he didn't score a try this year, he had a try assist and a line break, and he was relatively the same. So it was pretty average in my eyes. So the way he played last year was exactly how he played this year. Not really amazingly impactful, and took his chances when he could, and tried to nab some games wherever he could. So the times he played 1 game at fullback, and another game came off the bench and then spent the last few games in the centres. So look, I thought it was pretty averagey from him. Obviously not consistent football, and the effect of COVID-19 this year, not being able to go back and improve on what you need to improve on, isn't really as solid. So I thought he wasn't the best year from Dejan Asi, and he'd be looking for more first grade next year. Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, he had it as good of a year as he had. He did have 2 separate injuries which kind of affected his year. He injured his ankle around 6 to 11, was unavailable, and he had an appendectomy and was out for 4 weeks for that. He played 8 games in the centres, 1 on the wing, 4 at fullback. And his stats for the year, we scored 8 tries, made 13 line breaks and 38 tackle breaks, while he averaged 122 metres per game. And he also debuted for Queensland in the centres, like I mentioned earlier, and he was playing some very good football there. So look, looking at Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow in only his second year at first grade, I was really impressed with him, kind of adding into what he had done last year. And while he did play a bit less games, I just thought that he was just the biggest threat. He obviously upped the line breaks from 4 from last year to 13. He missed less tackles, and even though he made more, and his average meters jumped from 98 to 122. So I thought it was good this year, and I thought it was probably Cowboys' best player, and I think a player that really should have earned Player of the Year. Javed Bowman, after a year off, he kind of, back in Queensland Cup, he decided to join the Cowboys again another year and played a total of 9 games for the club, which was at times where he looked pretty solid. It seemed as if the way he played was pretty impactful. Now, he scored 3 tries, made 3 line breaks and 24 tackle breaks, which are averaging at 100 metres per game. And unfortunately, it was an MCL and ACL injury that ended his year early, which we'd only find out this week. He'd announced his retirement for the game, which I thought was a pretty average year from Javed Bowman. There were times where he looked threatening, but then there were times where he just kind of was caught out in defence a lot as well. So look, all the best in retirement. It's a very sad way to go out and not being on your own terms, unfortunately. So it was really poor on that end. But mate, all the best post football, and hopefully everything works out for you once that's all been sorted. So I thought it was an average year from Javed Bowman, in a year where he obviously wouldn't be as proud, but unfortunate that it was ended his career. Kane Bradley, he was signed to the club as a second rower, but made the change over to the wing over the last couple of years. So he made his debut this year and only played 2 games for the Cowboys towards the back end of the year. And on debut, he ended up scoring a try as well. Love a good try on debut, so it's really good to see that from Kane Bradley. Finished the year with a try, 3 tackle breaks and a line break for an average of 105 metres. But with a very injury-affected year this year, he'd be hoping for more game time next year. I thought it was good for what I had seen of him. So obviously he'll be building in for a big preseason to have a bigger year in 2022. Now, Leisha Mossy Drake. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly, so please forgive me if I haven't. Did make another kid that made his debut this year. He scored a try, make 2 tackle breaks. With the 2 meters tall, he looks pretty threatening to get some game time in 2022 and looks very threatening behind the line. Kind of reminds me a bit of Daniel Tupou in terms of his body shape and being almost 2 meters tall. So he's hoping he'd have a bigger and better season next year and hopefully have a starting spot. I thought it was pretty average. I didn't think anything amazing of him. But I did think that he was someone that could obviously make an impact in the limited time he had. But I'm sure with more game time next year, he would definitely be better for that in the long run. Kyle Feldt is a mainstay of the Cowboys. He also extended his contract this year to the end of 2024. He made the most tries for the Cowboys this year. Played 20 games. He scored 12 tries. Had a try assists, a total of 74 tackle breaks and 15 line breaks, which in attack is not too bad. He averaged 132 running meters as well, which isn't very poor. But it was where he was caught out in defense, which was really, really poor. He led about 28 tries down his side throughout the course of the year. Just very poor defensive reads from Kyle Feldt in the man that was inside him, unfortunately. So it was very poor in that sense from him. But in a year that was, comparing to last year, he was down on tries from last year. Last year scored 19 tries. This year was only 12. He obviously had a try assist, made 15 line breaks, so he's only increased and gotten better in terms of breaking the line. Made a lot more tackles and missed about the same amount, around 28 tackles this year. He was down in his average running meters. But I thought in attack he was okay, but like I said, in defense. So for me, I'd rate him in the average column for how he was this year. I wouldn't say he was a standout. I wouldn't say he was poor, but I think it was just very average. But he needs a lot of work this offseason to make it right and to have better defensive reads so to be conceding a lot less tries down the right side where he was playing. Murray Taulagi. Got a lot more game time from Todd Payton, and he ended up having a pretty solid season. He scored 10 tries and playing 20 games this year. To add to that, he had 3 try assists, 46 tackle breaks, and 11 line breaks, and running at an average of 110 meters per game. which we'll see hopefully a lot more of in 2022. And I like what I saw from him. I thought it was good this year, Mario Talagi. I didn't think he was too poor, and I'm looking to see how much better he can be next year. But fighting with Peter Hiku for a spot there next year. Scott Drinkwater played the first 2 games at fullback before moving into 5'8", and then playing the rest of the year there. He also was another one of those players that played all 24 games this year, along with a few others. In the 24 games he played this year, he scored 5 tries and converted 11 goals while making 17 try assists, 44 tackle breaks, and 3 line breaks. And I feel like this was his proper first year at the Cowboys, where he was getting more consistent football in the halves. Now, he'll only be better for it in the long run, considering that he'll be having Chad Townsend next year, who's an experienced half, premiership winning half, join his side. So I think it'll be a lot better for that in the long run. Now, in terms of his stats for the 20-way in 2020, he built his more game time and obviously won a few more games, scored a few more tries. Had 19 try assists last year, which is a bit down to this year's 17. Also made 3 line breaks. Did miss a lot more tackles, but his tackle efficiency improved from 75.5% last year to 81.2% this year. And he averaged the exact same 92 meters this year as well. So I thought he had a pretty okay year, Scott Drinkwater. Very hard when you're losing a lot of games and there's a lot of issues, especially with trying to get the right half to join in alongside you. But I thought he played okay and did his part and tried to be as consistent as possible. But look, he's still a rookie, still needs a bit more game time and needs more experience there. But a year in the halves will make him better for it next year. Tom Dearden enjoyed mid-season from the Broncos and played every game since he joined the club. He was the starting halfback every single week. Now, the 5 games he played for the Broncos, some came off the bench and some were starting before joining the Cowboys. At the time of the Broncos, he scored a try and made a line break. The 12 games in the Cowboys, he scored 6 tries, had 4 try assists and 3 line break assists. Every game he played, though, defense was an issue. He missed a total of 43 tackles. Ended up missing 59 all up for the year. But I think for me, it'll be very lucky to see him getting a gig next year. I don't really see him moving into 5'8" to partner Townsend in the halves. I kind of see Scott Drinkwater filling in that void at number 6 and having Townsend coming in at 7 and Tom Dearden probably going into Queensland Cup, unfortunately. But took him a while before they got their win, so he's only won 1 game in the last 20 out of 29 games that he has played, or first grade. So hasn't really tasted much success, and will be a lot better, hopefully, for the experience that he got there. And the last back that we'll talk about is obviously one of the key men there, Valentine Holmes. Had a pretty okay this year. I thought it was pretty average. 20 games this year between wing, centre, and majority of fullback, where he played 3 games on the wing, 2 in the centres, and 15 at fullback. He scored 4 tries and kicked at 73%. Had 10 try assists, 64 tackle breaks, and 8 line breaks to go with it as well. I just didn't think it was a terrible year. I thought he played pretty okay at State of Origin as well, getting to represent his state once again. Only missed 4 games with injury due to that shoulder complaint that he had from State of Origin 3, which I said I think he'll be better for in the long run. He'll be looking to stake his claim for fullback in 2022 alongside Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. So those are the reviews for the backs of the Cowboys. Now we're going to get into the review for the forwards. And Ben Condon we'll start off with. He added to his debut year with another 11 games he played this year. He ended the year with 4 tries, 2 line breaks, line break assists, and 7 offloads, while only averaging 57 meters per game in his stint starting off the bench, which is pretty concerning. Now, he's got a lot to work on in getting a lot more experience. Last year, he only played 1 game. This year, he played 11. So we'll be looking to see how well he'll go with a bigger the full preseason and probably a lot more consistent game time as well, while Top Hayden's still trying to shuffle who the right players are for which positions. But I thought he was okay this year, and obviously another chance to build on this year. Cohen Hess played 22 games this year and won the Player of the Year. I'm not going to lie, I thought it was pretty non-existent most of the year. He was switched between the bench, prop, lock, and bench. Bench, prop, and lock. He scored 2 tries, made a line break, and had 11 offloads. Maintained that 90.2% tackling efficiency. With that being said, he averaged 76 meters, where this year he made 200 more tackles and missed 68 more, and he dropped his average in run meters, which we can all take a look at right now. So looking at Cohen Hess, you'd think it was an out-and-out second rower, but like I said, got game time all over the shop for the forwards. When you take a look at just how he went last year, he played a lot more games than he did last year. Down on the tries that he scored, down in the line breaks, down in offloads, made 200 more tackles, but doubled the amount of missed tackles. 68 he missed, which is the most he's missed in his career. He was up in total running meters, but his average running meters were down from last year. But last year was up the average 92 meters, down this year to 76, which I thought was pretty average from Cohen Hess. He obviously needs to step up now that he's more than one of the most experienced campaigners there. When you think about it as well, he's playing 118 games, so he's very experienced in what he needs to do week in, week out. He needs to lead this younger crop coming through, which I thought was pretty average this year. Omre Pere didn't make an appearance this year and looking for some game time in 2022. Griffin Nemi made his debut in the back end of the year, played 3 games, averaging about 30-ish minutes per game. Had 4 tackle breaks, 3 offloads, and made 65 tackles, only missing 3 and averaging 86 meters. And we all know the part he played for Jeremiah Nanai, where he didn't put up that weird kick, came off another kick from Felt, a bit of a line break between Drinkwater, which gave the ball to Nemi, which offloaded to Nanai to score that try a few weeks out from the closure of the season against the Tigers. So we'll get to see more of him in 2022. I liked what I'd seen. I thought it was good. I thought he came on from the bench this year and he made an impact whenever he could, and I think he'll be better for it, and I'm looking to see a bigger year from him in next year in 2022. Jeremiah Nanai burst onto the scene as well. Another kid that made his debut this year, played 11 games. He was the rookie of the year for the Cowboys this year as well. He scored 3 tries, made 4 line breaks and 2 offloads, averaged 66 meters. And I'm looking forward to seeing how much more he can be utilized next year, and looking to see him have a bigger and better year next year. Jordan Mclean, interesting one. One guy I've been really critical of since his move from Melbourne to the Cowboys. Very interesting profile as I was kind of looking through this one, and one that actually surprised me a lot, if I can be quite honest with you. Now, when you look at the career of Jordan Mclean, we all know of his successes being at the Storm and the impact he had there, and just how influential he was when he was there. And I thought Jordan Mclean was pretty solid. This is the first time in his career where he's played every game in the season. Now, over the previous years, in 2019 he had 22 games played, but this year he's played every game. And I thought he was very solid in the time that he had. So another experienced campaigner there that really needed to lift. He scored a try this year, had 14 tackle breaks and averaged 10 hit-ups per game. Only had 1 offload in him, and he made 605 tackles with a tackle efficiency of 97.6% and averaging of 1 meters of 108. Now, he only missed 15 tackles all year, and he played every game this year. That's very good. That's some very good defensive display. He averaged 108 meters, and he was up 700 meters from this previous year, which is really good to see. And I thought it was good this year, Mclean. I thought he tried to lead the team as best as he could. There were games where he didn't have phenomenal performances, but there were some games where especially round 22 against the Tigers, he chalked up some big numbers and chalked up 198 running meters, and he's probably his highlight. In the last month of football he played, he averaged he got over 100 meters per game. Got a bit sloppy at times. There was a period where there was a good month where he was getting some really good numbers there. Then he kind of dipped a little bit, but he played every game this year and was very impressive defensively. So I thought he had a good year, and hopefully that we can see a bit more of that from Jordan Mclean, especially with the big figures he's on at the club. Now, having a look here, another player that is in question here is, from what I can see, would be Jake Granville. Now, Jake Granville had a lot of game time this year where he was playing a lot of the games off the bench. And he, again, another player that played all 24 games this year. Now, he was on the bench for the first 4.5 months. He ended up getting a stint at fullback and 1 game in the centres due to a lot of injuries before going back and relegating to the bench. Just being that cover, I thought he had a pretty okay year. Now, in the year that he had this year, he scored 4 tries. He had 3 try assists, 4 line break assists, and offload, and he made 362 tackles at a tackle efficiency of 90%. Now, looking up from the previous year, in 2020, he only played 8 games. So he definitely had a better year this year. As I said, he scored 4 tries. He was up in the try assist column. He was a lot busier defensively, and obviously only missed about 42 tackles all up this year. Bit up from his average running meters of 53, so coming on, making an impact. It was a bit of a questionable one when he played fullback against Melbourne, where he was actually extremely solid. But that's what Jake Granville can bring, especially towards the twilight of his career, where he can just bring a valuable experience to that side where they need it most. And I thought it was very impressive of him to come on, make an impact, play every single week, and put up some very big numbers, which was really good to see on our end from that. Jason Taumololo, the man that didn't have one of his best years, I got to say. He's played over 211 games. Of course, his career, he added 15 games to the tally this year. He scored a try, had 31 tackle breaks, he made 17 offloads and made 407 tackles, averaging running meters of 155, which is, look, for the limited game time that he had, is impressive numbers. There was only one time this year he played 80 minutes when he was in the second row, and that was against the Titans, where he was probably at his best and was very impactful then. But look, consider this. He didn't play 80 minutes every week. But look at some of the numbers he was putting up. So when you take a look at he had some big running meters. 194, 167, 188, 174, 209, 174 again, 188. So he put up some big numbers, and anytime he got onto the field and he played, he was absolutely devastating. But the problem I have here is the lack of game time that he got. If we compare to how it was last year, he played one less game this year than he had done last year. When you take a look at the tackle breaks, he was down from his previous years of 53 to 31. Post-contact meters of 1,407 last year, down to 906. Increased his offloads from 14 to 17. Made 100 less tackles, and he was down in his total running meters. So his average running meters of 207 last year dropped down to a career low of 155. Sorry, not a career low, over the last 6-7 years. This is it. Considering he still put up some big numbers, this was his poorest year. And while I still think he had an average year, I thought it was okay. It wasn't really helped with the fact that he was put into so many different positions and lacking a lot of game time as well. So hopefully that gets sorted out in the offseason. We get to see a lot more Taumololo in the 80 minutes per week. Because utilising him for 40 to 50 minutes a game is just not what you can do with Jason Taumololo. Lachlan Burr played 15 games in his first season for the Cowboys. And like I mentioned earlier, he was the only player that was signed to the club that had any first-grade experience. He scored a try, had 17 tackle breaks and 9 offloads, and made 416 tackles at 90% tackling efficiency, and he averaged 80 meters per game. I thought that's pretty good. Kind of the same numbers that he had posted last year with the Warriors. So he came in, made the exact same impact that he did last year at the Warriors. So I think he'll be better for that, and he'll just provide a lot more depth and experience for that front row. Mitch Dunn made 20 appearances for the club this year and started to play some very solid football. Scored 2 tries, had 3 line breaks and 3 line break assists, and as well as 6 offloads to go with that. Made 706 tackles, was very busy defensively, and missing 53 with a tackle efficiency of 93% and average 66 meters per in the season of his average meters, which I thought was a pretty good year for Mitch Dunn. Another year where he can look back and be proud of, and hopefully carry into that some of that good form he carried this year over into next year. Reece Robson, another player that played every game for the club this year, coming from the Dragons, he had a lot of expectations from him to come down as the next-best young hooker to come through. Scored 6 tries, had 4 try assists, 4 line break assists, and 9 offloads, while he made 911 tackles at 93% efficiency. And I thought it was a pretty solid year from him, but he does need to be better. And now that he knows what it takes to be in the week in, the week out of consistent first grade, he'll know that he'll need to be better and hopefully be better for that run next year. Reuben Kotter only had another 6 games to his career this year, coming in as depth whenever it was needed. Without the lack of Queensland Cup, it was hard for him to get a lot of game time as well. Made 200 tackles and only missed a handful at 97% efficiency, which I think is pretty good from him in the limited games that he had. Not being impactful, but just kind of doing his job in defense and being consistent there. Put him in his good books on my end. Riley Price, another player who didn't make an appearance for the Cowboys and will be in the top squad in 2023. The last player to mention here is Tom Gilbert. Made 11 appearances to build on the 12 he made last year. Made 10 tackle breaks and an offload. Made 323 tackles at 93% tackling efficiency, which I think is pretty good from Tom Gilbert. And I'm sure that with more game time next year, he'll definitely be better for that run and build up more of that form this year and carry it into next year. That's all the players that we've run through that partook on the field for the Cowboys. Now, the Club Person of the Year and the 2021 Cowboys Award winners, 2021 Club Person of the Year was Ben Hampton. The Townsville Bulletin Fans' Choice Award was Jake Granville, where he also picked up Members Player of the Year. The JCU Education Awards went to Corey Jensen. The 2021 Rookie of the Year, Halem Lukey, which it was fantastic to see from him. The Players Player Award this year was Murray Taulagi and Colin Hess taking out Paul Bowman Medalist Player of the Year. And those were the award winners there for the Cowboys. Now, with the expectations for 2022, getting a bit more first-grade experience coming in with a bit more direction in the halves in Chad Townsend. Don't know, and obviously picking up Peter Hiku from the Warriors, which would be vital, obviously, in the centers. So it could help the Cowboys a little bit more, but they're still lacking a lot of strike power in their forwards. but that's something we'll cover in our 2022 season preview. Guys, thanks so much for joining me on another episode of League Chat with the Stat. Like I mentioned earlier, you can know where to find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So keep liking those pages and following as we're putting up regular content and regular news going on in those pages. And make sure to just be part of what we're doing here. Make sure you're sharing this post all over the place. If you're liking the season reviews, please leave your thoughts on what you reckon and what more I can add into the next week as we discuss the Brisbane Broncos. So one that I'm looking forward to really getting into there. Guys, as I said, thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your weeks. And we'll obviously get keen and be ready for the 2021 season review of the Brisbane Broncos. Hope you guys enjoyed my Cowboys review. You guys take care, and we'll see you next week. See you later.